Wasn't that a lovely song? I believe in blackness. Well, for obvious reasons. One of the reasons that I'm here is because I am a writer, and I have some poetry that I'm going to share. I'm going to share one poem that's fairly short, but actually I have another one that I've written that's a tribute to black men, and it's called My Black King. And, well, it's so precious, but it's a bit long, so I'm not reading that one today, okay? Forgive me. This one is Black Man. First, let me tell you why I've written it, because I always like to know why people write what they write. I have written this poem because I think that there's so much animosity in the hearts of black women today, some of them, against the black men. So I have a plea. Black women, I want you to just forgive them. I want you to wipe the slate clean and give them a chance to start all over. I mean, you're arguing and saying, you know, you didn't do this last year and you didn't do this the year before that, but I want you to take an eraser and I want you to erase everything that this man has done or not done. So that's why I wrote this poem. Black man, we love you, happy or sad, rich or poor, driving or riding on the bus. You still belong to us. Your pain is our shame on all who took part in the knot in your heart. We have no room to hold grudges, and we're filled with a million urges to wipe the slate clean and forget how to be mean. We forgive you for back alimony and no palimony, because the journey that you took in the dark, blindfolded by hatred, left little hope for a destination without disintegration. We will be a candle for your steps, lit by God. You'll get there. Oh, you'll get there. If you have to ride the corners of our hearts until you can run, until you have sung your song to the world. Black man, we love you. And if, would you hold this for me, please? And if you could hear just a little bit of emotion in my voice when I was reading that, that's because that's so dear to my heart. And when I read about black men and the things that I've written about them, I really have to refrain from crying. I really want to cry because you know what? There's a war going on, a big, furious war. And even though you don't always hear the bullets, and even though you don't sometimes see the weapons drawn, do you know that there is a war going on against black men, all black men, even the well-educated ones? Let me share a little story with you that left an imprint on my mind, something that happened years and years ago before I was ever a mom or a wife. A lady came to my house, and she was always visiting me with her 4-year-old daughter, and she never called. I hate people to visit when they don't call, but she never called. So one day I went to the door to open the door, and there she was with her little girl, Sylvia. And I had just bought a little chocolate devil's food cake with the creamy icing in the middle, and I had bought a big bag of potato chips because I like to eat something sweet with something salty. And, well, I didn't want to share. I told you I hadn't had any children, and I didn't want to share with Sylvia because every time she came, she wanted to eat up everything. So I rushed. Her mother didn't see me, you know, and I put the cake in my bag, and I zipped it up. And I was trying to get the chips in there, too, but the chips were keeping up so much noise, so I said, okay, I'm going to have to share my chips with Sylvia, so I left my chips out. And as her mother and I started to talk, Sylvia's eyes, you know, panned over to my chips, and she said, Mommy, oh, some chips. Oh, delicious. And her mama said, Sylvia, no. And she says, Mommy, oh, some chips. So finally her mother said, Jean, I really hate to bother you, but could Sylvia have some chips? And I said, oh, well, sure, you may have some of my chips. You know, I opened my bag, gave the little girl a few chips. Well, of course, before long, I saw her little fingers getting the crumbs. I even liked those crumbs. She was getting the little crumbs and eating them up. I didn't like it. I didn't want to give her any of my chips. And I thought, well, good, she didn't see my cake. At least I don't have to share my cake with her. A few minutes later, her mother and I are trying to have this serious conversation about what else? Men. And here's the little girl comes. Mommy, oh, some cake. She called it cake, which is why I remembered it so distinctly. And her mom says, Sylvia, there's no cake. Honey, she gave you the chips. It was just chips. I thought, ha. Her mother didn't see it. So then she says, Mommy, oh, some cake. And she kept begging and begging. So finally, after she had pestered her mother to no end, she started to hit on my arm. Jean, I said, yes. Oh, some cake. And I said, darling, why did you feel that there was cake? Didn't you enjoy the chips? She said, Jean, oh, some cake. And I felt so guilty, so finally I said, okay, you can have some cake.
Cake? That's it?
And I gave her some cake.
Well, you know what?
But there was a moral to that.
There was a moral.
There's a moral to the story. There's a moral to the story.
Y'all know there was a moral. I knew there was a moral to that story.
Give
okay.
the black man the cake.
Give him the cake.
Give him the cake. Don't
Give
make
the
him
black
big.
man the cake.
Don't make him big.
Don't make.
Yes.
You know, we're gonna have to come back and have Gene on again. Talking about give the black man the cake.
Yes.
And we're talking about many types of food here. Not just the food that feeds the fleshly man, but the food that also feeds the spiritual man. And that's the foundational food. So we're going to have a good opportunity to talk about that. But Gene, we've got about 2 minutes left. Okay. And you know, you talked about. Well, I got your book of poetry.
Oh, that's okay.
You're a good book. I take that book home. You know, but you know, you told me something about dogs. When we sat in my office and you told me something about dogs and men being dogs and not use that.
Yes.
Could you share that, you know, with us just for a couple of seconds here about the whole thing about men and dogs?
Okay, well, what I would like to see, and I'm really optimistic, I'm very optimistic, but what I would like to see is for black women to be ashamed to get on another show and open up their mouths and say, all men are dogs. You know, my first husband was a dog, my second husband was a dog, and my third husband was a dog, and, you know, all I seem to attract is dogs.
Yeah.
I want her to realize that if she's attracting nothing but dogs, there must be fleas on her somewhere. And I want her to be so embarrassed when she calls a black man a dog that she wonders if maybe she doesn't bark herself in her sleep. Because if she's only attracting dogs, that has to do with the fact that, you know, cows mate with cows and birds with birds and cats with cats. And, well, you know, if she's attracting dogs, she's saying something very telling about herself,
You
isn't she?
lay down with fleas, you're going to get bit. Now listen, don't lay down with any fleas or any dogs because we're going to wrap this one up. And we just want to thank you for joining us, and I want to thank Gene, Dancy Monroe for being here. And we look forward to seeing you again on G&G Success Factory. Thanks a lot. Stay tuned. So nice sitting here doing that.